6 months ago, Kia released this giant, the 3-row all-electric EV9. This is the cheapest 3-row all-electric SUV available right now in the United States, and I've been living with it for the last 5 days. So if you guys want to know what my thoughts are after a week with the EV9, stay tuned. So this here is the 2024 Kia EV9 GT line. This is top of the line. It has every option, every feature. Of course, that's just what the press fleet usually gives out. They originally told me they were going to be giving me the Land trim, which I was actually looking forward to testing more than this trim because that's going to be the much more volume trim. You're going to get a lot more people purchasing that one just because it's a lot more affordable. This color is called Ocean Blue. I'm a big fan of it. The exterior here on the GT line, you get a lot of gloss black plastic, which I think it looks good. I think it's fitting of this trim, but personally, I don't really like it just because when you wash the car, even if you have clean mitts, it's still gonna get scratched up. It's gonna look just really kind of bad after a while. And I was actually noticing here, there's already some pretty deep scuffs here on the gloss black B-pillar trim, and it just doesn't look great. This car only has 3,500 miles on it. This has a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack. It's the biggest of the two options. The smaller is 75 kilowatt hours. It'll give you about 220, 230 miles of range. This one's gonna give you 270 miles. If you get the base model with the big battery pack, you will see over 300 miles of range on it. Having only the rear motor makes a huge difference in terms of efficiency. I love these LED accent lights. Something Kia is doing with their new vehicles is they are creating things that you can purchase through the car's infotainment system, and one of those is going to be different patterns for these LED accent lights that are kind of embedded into the grille. Something that Kia has implemented here on the EV9 is a remote opening frunk, which is actually really nice. So all you got to do is hold down this button on the key fob, and it will pop the hood open, and guess what? There's no latch here. All you got to do is just pull up, and you have immediate access to whatever's in your front trunk. Now, granted, it's not the biggest front trunk in the world. It's bigger than the Ioniq 5, and you can see it's a very barren front end. All you really have access to is just the washer fluid. Your coolant is behind this plastic cover, and then over here you have your brake fluid. So they're trying to keep everything as tidy and as hidden as possible. Even the 12-volt battery, you have to access through the bottom of the front trunk basin here, but your cabin air filter is located behind that cover. Just the stuff you really need to get to and nothing more. This being the top end trim, you get cameras all around the car for that surround view camera system. Unfortunately, that doesn't act as a dash cam like Sentry mode and Tesla's. Down below here, you have your active air flaps for cooling the battery pack as well as the cabin. I really like Kia's new design language that they're going with here. This is a just very masculine looking car. It's sporty, it's strong looking. I don't know who their target demographic is, but I think they nailed the design here. And I'm really excited to see that the EV5 kind of looks pretty similar. The upcoming EV3 also shares a lot of the similarities in styling with this vehicle. So I think Kia is just really killing it. The GT line here has massive 21-inch wheels, and they're actually utilizing Hankook's EV-specific tires now, which is good to see. Those are going to have lower rolling resistance, more sound deadening. They're just going to be an all-around better tire for an EV. Now, something new from Kia with this vehicle is the fact that you have these pop-out door handles that are electrically actuated, and they just shoot straight out. They give you a nice big opening to put your hand, and then you just pull it, and then you're in the car. From the back here, it looks like there's no rear wiper, but once you get up under the spoiler here, there is actually a rear wiper that's just tucked up there, deploys when you need it, looks clean when you don't. So I think Kia really nailed it with that as well. This version of the EV9 also comes with the integrated roof rack rails, which are a nice gloss black to match the rest of the car. They don't look aftermarket in any way. Now, this car does have the dual panoramic glass sunroofs here. The front opens, the rear does not. As somebody who's always owned smaller cars, being sedans and small crossover SUVs, I never really understood the appeal of big SUVs like this, but as somebody who's 6'2", I can actually understand why people like these things. They're just so easy to get in and out of. You just basically just slip right in. And once you're in, you've got great headroom. You've got excellent visibility. You have a very commanding view of the road. You have a digital rear view mirror that gives you a great view out the back. And then all the windows on this thing are just huge. Even the ones behind the C-pillars are massive, so seeing out your blind spots is pretty easy. And then on top of that, you have all the standard safety features that you would find in any modern car. Something that Kia has incorporated here is something that I harp on all the time, and that's the fact that these door panels go all the way down to the bottom of the rocker panels, and there's even a silicone rubber gasket right here that seals up against this. So when you're driving in rain, you're driving in mud, all that stuff isn't collecting on here. When you're getting in and out of the car, it's not gonna get all over your pants, and it's gonna keep the car much cleaner. Now, this is the reason why people buy a vehicle this big, is the cargo capacity. When you open up the back of the EV9, you have a decent amount of storage space considering it's a 3-row. You could probably fit maybe 3, maybe 4 small roller bags in here, but where it really shines is when you fold down this 3rd row by pulling on this tab here. Let those down. This really opens up the cargo capacity, and if you haven't already seen, I've done a video comparing the cargo capacity of this to my Ioniq 5 and my Ioniq 6. Spoiler alert, the EV9 destroyed them. But then here in the back of the EV9, with just the touch of 2 buttons here, you can go ahead and fold down the 2nd row seats. And then once that's down, you basically have like almost a minivan in here. I'm 6'2", and I've got probably another 7 or 8 inches of headroom in here. You could probably fit a full-size mattress in here if you really wanted to. And then once you're done with that 2nd row being down, just press the buttons again and they come right back up. Ta-da! In the back here, you also have a vehicle to load 110 volt outlet, which is good up to 15 amps, so just your standard household outlet. Don't be putting big high-power blenders back here. Unfortunately, there is not a lot of underfloor storage, and that is because the vehicle's ICCU, or Intelligent Charging Control Unit, is located right under this plastic flap. I guess there was no room underneath to put it, so it takes up some of your storage space. LinerX is a Maryland-based company selling high-quality, laser-measured floor mats at a great price. They're made from TPE, which is a mixture of rubber and plastic, so they offer traction and flexibility, as well as strength when you need to remove them, so you're not going to dump their contents all over your floor. If you've ever owned floor mats from, say, WeatherTech, then you know those are made from a much harder material that tends to warp over time. Not with LinerX. They also feature a simple and classy-looking pattern with a lip around the entire footwell so liquids won't spread around and get on your carpeting. I've been using their front and rear floor mats as well as trunk and rear seat liners for over a year now, and they've held up admirably. So these floor mats have gotten the Ioniq Guy seal of approval, and when anybody asks which floor mats to buy, I always recommend LinerX. Available on their website or Amazon through the links in the description. So upon getting in the EV9, the first thing you're going to say is, where's the start-stop button? Is it over here? Is it on the steering wheel? It's right there. It's located on the shifting stalk, located here by your right knee. When I first got the car, I really didn't like the placement, but after driving this car for a week now, it's basically become second nature to not try and reach over it, but to just reach underneath it with my thumb. Just put your foot on the brake, press the button, and the car will come to life. That really bothered me at first, but like I said, I've gotten used to it. Once you're in and powered up, you're going to be greeted with the new CCNC software suite from Hyundai Kia. It looks the same between pretty much all the new cars coming out. It's a much nicer design now. I like the coloring. I like the simplicity of the icons. Overall, I just think they did a good job. There's some tweaks that are a little bit different versus the old system, like you can drag down from the top like you're in iOS or Android and get some more settings. But you can see it is very responsive. It is not a slow system whatsoever. One of my favorite things here with the new software is the addition of the battery conditioning activation button. You just press it, and down to 12% state of charge, it will warm the battery pack up if it's cold out. When the battery's warm enough, it will say suitable instead of low, just to let you know that you're ready for DC fast charging. This is an awesome feature that I desperately hope they bring to the previous version of software. I don't see a reason why they wouldn't be able to. All the components are there to activate battery conditioning. They just don't give you the option to do it via a button. It has to be done through the route planner, which I'm not that big of a fan of, but this button is awesome. I still am experiencing many of my same complaints with the route planning with DC fast charging stops as I did in my Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 6. So you can see I just planned a route out to Minneapolis where my fiance is living at the moment. And first things first, when it shows you the list of all your stops, I don't understand why it doesn't start with the one that's coming up the soonest at the top and then kind of go down the line as you get further from where you're starting. In my opinion, that should just be flipped. So if we want to see our first charging stop, we scroll to the bottom. And here lies my biggest problem. You can see it's telling me to show up at this DC fast charger with 37% state of charge. Granted, that's the one that's close by. It wants me to get the battery up to almost full. But the second charging stop, 46% to 90%. Next one, 29 to 90%. You're not utilizing enough of the battery, in my opinion. I would like to utilize at least 70% of the battery pack between charging stops. I want to roll into a DC fast charger with 10%, 5%, maybe even less. I like to live on the edge when it comes to getting to DC fast chargers. And this is where the car is going to excel in charging when it's almost empty. You don't want to show up to a DC fast charger at 46%. You're going to plug in and it's going to take you forever. You can see here it's estimating 25 minutes, 29 minutes here at the sheets, another 29-minute stop up there. I just want to be able to go into route options and say, hey, let me change what I roll into a DC fast charger with. I want to roll in with 10%, 5%. Just give me that option. So Kia, Hyundai, please just give us that option. A software update actually came out pretty recently for the EV9, and it added now a high estimated range as well as a low estimated range, which I think is good for most new EV owners who don't understand how range works. They don't understand that this is just a best guess. So if you're trying to factor in outdoor air temperature, terrain that you're driving on, speed you're driving at, you really need to think about those things. And having these two numbers is going to make things a little bit more realistic for you. So in terms of efficiency, I have had the car for about a week. I've put 431.9 miles on it. And you can see I'm averaging 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour, which is okay. It's not fantastic. It has been on the warmer side here, so it's not being super reduced due to cold weather, I don't think. So if you use the entire battery pack, that'll get you about 240 miles. I did do a highway efficiency test comparing this car to my new Ioniq 6 SE rear-wheel drive, which is actually the most efficient vehicle you can buy at the moment in the United States. So if you want to know what that looks like, check out the link in the description. Now, the interior color here is not my favorite. I do like brighter, more light colored interiors. There's a lot of black here. The headliner's all black. It's a very soft material. It's almost like a suede, but the doors are this gray. A lot of the materials in here are just dark black. You do have controls on the door for heated steering wheel, heated and ventilated seats, seat memory, as well as massage features. I personally don't like the placement on the door panel. I think it's hard to read. You have to lean forward to kind of see, but that's just something I haven't gotten used to over a week. I'm sure if I owned the car, I would know just by touch which one did what, but I would have much preferred them to be on the center console here. Window switches and everything, this is all standard kind of stuff. You can open up the hood by pressing this button twice, just like holding down the button on the key fob. And then you can also open the trunk remotely from here as well. You've got your electronic parking brake. Down below here in the GT line, you get nice stainless steel finished pedals, which look nice. The speaker grills here are a really nice pattern. It's not metal. It looks like it's metal, but they're just plastic. You've got decent sized door panels here that you can fit a 24-ounce water bottle into. This material here is a fabric. Something I just noticed the other day is that the pattern on the dashboard are like little Y shapes, and they kind of are emulating the look of the taillights of the car, which are also shaped like a Y. I think that's a nice touch that they carried that over to the interior. That's attention to detail right there. Down here you have some hard buttons that are built into the dashboard. They don't actually push in or out, but they have some haptic feedback, so you can get to things like your EV screen if you have it set up for that, or you can go to setup. It's just nice to have some shortcut buttons. They are fairly responsive and they work pretty well. This car does have the heads-up display. I've really enjoyed it over the last week. It looks good, it's sharp, it's bright, it's easy to see in sunlight. All around, no complaints on the heads-up display. The materials on the dashboard, nice and soft. Steering wheel feels great. It's kind of almost a flat top as well as a flat bottom. I'm really digging the open bottom like on my Ioniq 5 because when I'm driving, sometimes I like to just have my hand resting down on the bottom when highway drive assist is active, and I don't really need to be hugging the steering wheel as closely as I would if I were driving. You've got your paddle shifters for adjusting your regenerative braking behind the steering wheel, just like with any Hyundai, Kia, or Genesis EV. That's one of my favorite features about this lineup of cars, is just having that ability to adjust that on the fly. This vehicle does have multiple drive modes, so you have Eco, Normal, and Sport, just like every other Hyundai, Kia. You also have the My Drive, where you can go ahead and change the settings to your liking. So you can have it default to Eco, Normal, or Sport on the motor, Normal or Sport on the steering wheel. That's about it though. I think the Ioniq 6 gives you a little bit more customization, but that's all you get here on the EV9. And you also have snow mode. You do have the ability to lock the differential between the front and rear motor, which doesn't actually exist because they're two separate motors, but you can lock it if you're doing some more serious off-roading. Something that I'm going to say I'm really not a big fan of with this car is this little screen in between the driver display and the standard infotainment screen. This is for controlling your climate, and it's just in a really poor location. I give them credit for trying to use this space for something, but it's just not effective. When you're driving, this is your view of it. If your hand is right here, forget it. You can't see anything there. The passenger can see it just fine, but they've got a pretty long reach to get over there to get to it. Now you can almost always see this little crosshair in the upper right, and what that will do is bring up the controls on the center display. So you can always bring it over here to change your functions, but behind the steering wheel here, it's more or less useless. You do have some basic controls here on the dashboard. You can control your temperature up and down, fan speed, and then you've got your hazards. And then this really satisfying feeling volume scroll knob feels really good. It does take quite a few rolls to adjust your audio, so I usually end up just using the one on the steering wheel. You've got your USB ports down here. This can do double duty for power as well as data. You just got to press that button there. And then you've got your regular 12-volt outlet over here. So in regard to that, this timbre door is so satisfying to open and close. It's so smooth, quiet, it doesn't rattle around. It's just a very nice piece of engineering. So if you don't want to look at your cup holders being open, you can just close that or open it. And then in regard to the cup holders, you have these cool little flip out style cup holders. This one can accommodate a bigger water bottle, this one a smaller one up front. But yeah, cool engineering here on the center console. Back here you've got a fingerprint scanner that you can use for accessing the car without the key fob. Here you have auto hold, that when you push the brake all the way to the floor, it will hold the brake in place. You can take your foot off of it in the car. Downhill brake control. Here's your surround view camera button, which brings up the 360 view around the car with parking lines. You can also do that cool 360-degree view. And then this button here is utilized for the parking sensors or for the Smart Park Assist, which will automatically perpendicular or parallel park your vehicle. In my testing, it works pretty hit or miss, and it's so slow that it's almost unusable. I personally would never use it. Here you have a Qi wireless charging pad because this car has wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Hallelujah. I should mention I haven't had any issues with my phone overheating while using this charging pad. I have an iPhone 15 Pro. And then also a small little cubby back here that really doesn't hold all that much. The armrest is pretty well padded. This top trim EV9 also has the electrochromatic side view mirrors, which are also great. Those dim the lights coming down the side of the car at night. Just makes it so much more pleasant to drive in the nighttime. Now this car does have double glazed windows, so it really cuts down on the noise on the interior of it. So I really like that, but for an $80,000 car, I wouldn't expect anything otherwise. The glove box in this thing is huge. It's like a drop-down bin style. Much more useful than that in the Ioniq 5. After putting 500 miles on this car, I have not noticed any rattles, squeaks, or anything that would drive me crazy after living with this car for a few months. Just all around a very pleasant experience being behind the wheel of the EV9. The seats in the EV9 are so comfortable. And I'm speaking to those in the GT line. I can't speak for the lower trims. I don't know what kind of seating adjustments those have or how they relate to this, but there's just so much adjustment here. You can adjust the side bolsters, you can adjust the bottom seat cushion, like the amount of height it's giving you. You've got the leg rest that folds out if you want to kick back while you're charging. And all you got to do is just press this button and it will adjust everything, get you set up for that relaxation mode. But the headrests on this thing are fantastic. They're like this mesh material that's kind of hollow behind it, so your head just gets cradled on it. It feels so nice. Now this car does have an electrically adjusting steering column. Makes it really easy to adjust on the fly. Now the EV9 here has the Meridian 14 speaker sound system, and in my opinion it sounds excellent. Much better than my Ioniq 5 or Ioniq 6. I've been listening to podcasts, I've been listening to music. Everything just sounds pretty good. I'm not an audiophile, but I've been in cars with bad sound systems. This is not a bad sound system. Now, this car does have a lot of ambient lighting in it. I will show you guys some night shots of that right now, and it looks really classy, really tasteful. You can have it tied to which drive mode you're in, or you can change the colors independently of that, whatever suits your preference. I kind of like having it tied to which drive mode I'm in. What's really cool is you can split the colors, so you can have like a red up top, then you can have purple down on the door pockets. Just a lot of customization here. You can even pick independently which colors you want. Pretty cool stuff. So that's pretty much it for the front seat. It's a great spot to be. I really like driving this thing, just super comfortable. So now let's go talk about the back seat. So getting in the back of the EV9 is super easy. The doors open probably, I don't know, 80 degrees. They're almost 90 degrees open. So you have this massive space to get in. So if you're loading kids into a car seat or installing a car seat, it's going to be super easy. Got retractable sunshades on the doors. Back seats here in the GT line are treated to heated as well as ventilation, and they're also fully powered here. You got a grab handle here to assist with getting in and out. You've also got your own zone for climate control back here with vents that you can open and close or direct yourself. Seat back pockets. You've got two good-sized cup holders here, but I am selling cup holder enlargers to allow you to put 40-ounce water bottles here. Check out my store at ioniqi.com if you're interested. You also have USB-C ports on the back of both seats for charging your devices. You can control the front seat from the back here using these buttons. And if you're in this seat, that allows you to get a little more room. You obviously don't want to be adjusting the driver's seat while they're trying to work. So they don't give you that option over here on this side, but kind of nice that you can do that from the back. And then down below, you have this cool feature. It's this box that pulls out. You've got a little tray on the top. You can put some food or something for your kids in the back here. And then inside you do have a bunch of storage. Right now it's being occupied by a straw that the last journalist was using. So the drawer pulls out to here, but the table actually extends a little bit further, which is nice. And this is all possible thanks to this completely flat floor. There's no hump here whatsoever. You've got a ton of foot space under the seat. I've got a ton of knee room seated behind myself at 6'2". This second row seat is as far back as it goes, so I can't gain any more, but I've got plenty of space back here. I'd be very comfortable in this position on a long drive. So I'm going to go ahead and move the passenger seat here a little bit further forward so I can show you guys what the third row legroom looks like. Because if you're in the market for this SUV, you're probably interested in that third row. So there's a couple ways you can get back there. Obviously, you can just walk right through the pass-through in the middle, and then I'm in the back. And you can see I don't have a whole lot of room back here, even with this seat moved forward. If you want to screw over the second row passenger, you can pull this strap right here and just shove them forward. But once you're back here, you don't feel claustrophobic at all. Look at the size of this window. You have almost as good a view out the side as these second row passengers do. So I really love that. You're sticking people back here. They're not going to feel like they're third-class citizens. They've got a USB-C port to charge up their device. There's some speakers back here. There's also some cup holders. The larger one here, my cup holder enlarger, will work with. You can also recline the third row, which makes being back here a little bit more pleasant. The second row does also have the captain-style chairs, so you have a ratcheting armrest, kind of like a minivan. There are trims of the EV9 that will have a bench-style seat here, though, so you will lose this pass-through on certain trims, and you won't be able to come into the back through this center area. So I'll show you guys how to get in the back if that is the case. So here on the GT line with the electrically actuated seats, all you got to do is press this button right here. It moves the seat as far forward as it can. And then you can just go ahead, step right in, fall back, and then press that button on top of the seat. And if you need it to stop, you can press the button again so it won't go all the way back and crush you. And you can also move it forward with that button as well. So it's nice that they give you, the rear passenger, a little bit of control over how crushed you're getting. I imagine in the lower trims, this is all probably done manually. But yeah, all around, this is a great passenger vehicle. Very comfortable, very roomy, A+ Kia. All right, so now we're out on the road. Let's talk about what it's like to drive the Kia EV9. All around, it's a very pleasurable car to drive. Very smooth, very smooth. 0 to 60 in this car is about 4.5 to 5 seconds, but it feels slower than that. The Ioniq 5 all-wheel drive seems fast, and it does 0 to 60 at about the same speed of about 5 seconds. Maybe it's just your seating position here, you're higher up. It just feels like you're just going a little bit slower, but this road here is really bad, and this car really soaks up these bumps, all these potholes in the road, pretty well. The roads in the springtime here are not usually very good. The steering is pretty numb. Going around some S-turns like this, the car just remains nice and level. Being a big SUV, you would think that you'd be feeling some body roll, but it is really under control in the EV9. And I guess you can chalk that up to having a massive amount of weight low down in the car. It seems to me that this car is quieter than my Ioniq 5 or Ioniq 6. The throttle is very responsive, just like with any EV. I've pretty much been driving in iPedal exclusively. I haven't been straying from that very much. The tuning of how iPedal engages, how it brings on the regeneration to a full stop, it's a little bit slower to respond than the Ioniq 5. It takes a little bit longer to come down to a complete stop. I would prefer it to be a little bit more aggressive. I guess if you do put it in sport mode, let's try up here and see what it does when it comes to a stop. So I'm lifting off now. Okay, maybe it is a little bit more responsive when you're actually in sport mode. And it's got so much get up and go. For a car that weighs over 7,000 pounds, it's almost crime to think that this thing can do 0 to 60 in a little over 4 seconds. Now, I can't even imagine what the GT version of this car is going to be like. It honestly kind of scares me. I don't know how many people are going to want to bring a 7,000 pound truck to the track for fun on the weekend, but maybe that's a niche that has yet to be filled, and Kia's going to fill it. Now we'll see how it handles this bump here. There's a huge undulation in the road right here. Like nothing. I believe this car has about 8 or 9 inches of ground clearance, and for instances like that, or if you're like pulling out of a driveway with a big drop off or something, just you have nothing to worry about. You're not going to be clipping your lower front end on any edges or anything. But even in eco mode, it is still plenty responsive. Go back to normal mode. Now, I mean, this car is bigger than any car I've ever driven for any amount of time. And it took me a little while to get used to being behind the wheel of such a large vehicle. But I've gotten used to it, and I can now understand and appreciate why people like big SUVs like this, because it just feels really good. It's just really nice to have this chair-like seating position. The seats in this car are so comfortable. There's so many adjustments on them. You will be able to find a way to get comfortable. Granted, there are going to be fewer ways down in the lower trims versus the GT line, but I'm sure you'll still be able to get a comfortable spot. And I know I've been harping on it, but these headrests, compared to my Ioniq 5, which has headrests that are rock solid, these are nice and cushy. They allow your head to kind of just form into them a little bit. Just so much nicer than the Ioniq 5 headrests. Overall, I really enjoyed driving this car. It's soft enough but it's not too soft like I find the Ioniq 5 sometimes. But now we're gonna get on the highway and we'll activate highway drive assist, give you guys a sense of how that system works in this car. This does have highway drive assist too, so it does make automatic lane changes. And we got it set, and we'll see how it does. Again, so I've gotten really used to having the heads-up display again. They have implemented it very well here. So you can see right now I have my hands more or less off the steering wheel. We'll see how it handles these turns here. Now, it is my understanding that this steering wheel now uses capacitive feedback to alert the car that you are engaged with driving it, versus in my Ioniq 5 you have to torque the wheel and apply turning force to it to get it to comply. But here, I think you can just even rest a finger on it, but we'll see what happens here. It's doing a pretty good job right now at maintaining speed, and there's no car in front of me for it to follow, but it's staying in the lane pretty well. The lane lines are probably getting a little difficult to see here because of the sun glare. So I'm just gonna put my fingers on the wheel. It's a little windy out today, so there is a little bit more wind noise than I've been experiencing over the last 5 or 6 days. So anyway, that's gonna do it for this drive in the EV9. If you've driven one, let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. So if you guys couldn't tell, I really like this car. If I had an excuse or a reason to need this size of a vehicle, this would be top of my shopping list. I have enjoyed driving this car so much over the last week. I really don't want to give it back. It's just a little too big for me at this point in my life. My fiance and I don't have kids yet, but you better believe that when we do get to that point in our lives and we need something this size, we'll definitely be considering the EV9. Now, me personally, I would not buy the GT line. I don't need every single bell and whistle that this car comes with. Sure, they're nice, but are they worth an extra $15,000 versus a land trim or a wind trim? I personally don't think so. I'd rather save that money and put it elsewhere. Now, I will say, if the Kia EV5, this car's smaller sibling, were available in the United States, I would probably purchase that over an EV9 at this point in my life. It's a little bit smaller, but it's not coming to the United States market anytime soon. It's coming to Canada, it's made in China, it's going on sale in Australia right now, but Kia has said for some reason they're not bringing it to the US, but I think it would fit perfectly between the small EV6 and this EV9. So anyway, guys, if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Check out my store at ioniqguy.com for cup holder enlargers for the EV9, and I will be releasing the automatic door lock module for this vehicle. I've already tested a version specific to the EV9, and it works flawlessly, just like it does with the Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 6 and EV6. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.